Hi, welcome to the Denver Older Adult Resource Channel by Maintain Me. I am Morgan. I'm the director at Maintain Me.
And hello, I'm Chelsea. I'm the owner of Maintain Me. Okay, today we are going to be talking about memory care and assisted living. A lot of our clients have asked us, what is the difference? But I think Morgan's going to start us off with a little bit of a myth buster about this.
Thanks, Chelsea. Yeah, so what is the difference between memory care and assisted living? And the myth busting is that memory care and assisted living are both assisted living. So there is a difference in the levels of care provided, but as far as definitions go, they're both helping you with your activities of daily living. That's what an assisted living does. So, you know, it's not a nursing home. And that's the other big myth, is memory care does not automatically mean you're in a nursing home. Yes, there's a memory care in a nursing home because you still need that security, but it is different than an assisted living and different license and all kinds of differences. But we're going to go into that a little more. Chelsea?
Yeah, so the first obvious one in memory care assisted living. So we're going to kind of keep using that term a little bit because we want you to understand this is a assisted living license with a memory care, add-on or kind of an additional requirement. So the first big requirement is the care staff to resident ratio. So when we start seeing memory cares, we almost see kind of like a double. If you're looking at a smaller place, almost a double in care ratio, because you have to have more care more care staff because our residents need more care at this level. And so, something like a shower, might take twice as long with someone with a cognitive impairment so that you can work through any fears and just, any cueing and things like that. And so what that means through the state is they're saying, okay, because you need a higher level of care for a memory care, we think that there needs to be a better care staffing ratio in that type of setting. So, and then one step further is if it's, Medicaid or any kind of like InnovAge or things like that, they also have an additional staffing ratio requirement. So again, it kind of depends on how many people, and it also depends on what type of care you have in each community, but there is typically a higher staffing ratio for care.
And should we give figures on that? Do you want to give it?
I know that for a small one that they typically have 2 on. So like if you're in like a small, like 8 to 16 maybe, that you typically need to have 2 care staff on at all times, because the Q map is doing the medications. And then there's also somebody who might be having to help the residents to and from the restroom during like this big med pass. And so they feel that is something that needs to be, you can't have either or, you have to have both. Do you know what it is in a larger community, Morgan?
It's funny because they used to do ratios, like it used to be a 6. But now it's more based on the acuity of the residents. So if you have a whole bunch of people in late stage dementia, even if it's, you have 8 people in late stage dementia, you may need to have 3 caregivers so that you have adequate coverage. And that may seem really high, but if you have 3 people having a need, and that's pretty common of 8 or 10 high care dementia folks, then you're going to need to have coverage for all of that. So
yeah, I agree. I think that
is kind of the number, but
yeah. And I also think that this is kind of subject to, it's very objective, right? Like, it's like, okay, based on how much care that we have, is everybody getting taken care of? And the only real evaluation of that is with the state. So if a state comes in and feels like all the care is being met, then your staffing ratio is typically okay. But if it's not being met, they might say that you need to increase your staffing ratio. And so it's just not as black and white as it used to be. But a lot of times too, some of the smaller places, if an owner is on site, during the day, or the administrators on site during the day, that they can kind of add to that care staff. So I don't want to, anybody to think that, oh, my mom's not getting taken care of appropriately, you need another care staff. Sometimes even just having the owner or the administrator on site, because of their additional training, they are still considered extra staff during that time. So just to kind of be aware that, it might not be your typical CNA, or they don't really recognize CNA, but maybe a personal care provider, or your QMAP, but it also might be, any management staff still being considered as extra staff on site. So just to, kind of clarify that a little bit.
So let's see here. Oh, and then moving on to number 2, if there's nothing else on number 1, the big thing to think about when you're thinking about memory care assisted living is secured entrances and exits, and secured outside space. Oftentimes with dementia, people will wander, as we call it, which means they may be trying to go home or looking for something that they've lost, even though they can't name what that thing is. And they'll feel inclined to want to walk right out the front door. When you're cognitively aware, of course, that's not a problem. And when you're in assisted living and you're cognitively aware and you walk out the front door, not a problem. It's encouraged. Get out. But if you get out and you don't have safety awareness or the ability to get yourself back into your house or to your community, and this happened all the time with my grandfather. We'd get calls. He would have gone to the hardware store he's gone to a million times, and then he would end up somewhere else, and they would call us and say, hey, are you looking for so-and-so? And that is a level of security that needs to be provided for these people who are living with dementia in an assisted living. Memory cares are secure, locked. Assisted living is not. It's open. You can come and go as you please.
Yeah, I will add one thing to this, just that I was thinking about while you were saying that. This is the main difference between admission as well, because you need orders to go into a memory care assisted living versus just assisted living. You don't need orders. You don't need, okay, let me back that up. You still need orders no matter what, but you don't need a secure form which saying that you need locked doors, because you can't just put anybody in a place that has locked doors. That's not appropriate. But if somebody says, hey, this is a big safety risk, this person needs that extra layer of safety, you have to actually have an order from the physician saying that that level of safety is in place, so that people aren't, being wrongfully, put into different communities, or not put, but, admitted into different communities that do not fit in that type of setting. And that really does kind of hone into that secure versus not, is that extra admission process for identifying if secure is appropriate. So, okay, let's go into number 3, and that is that there is typically, so all assisted livings have ongoing education. However, one thing that's really different about memory care assisted livings is they typically have some specialty training, usually around some cognitive impairment barriers. So redirecting, one of our favorite, Morgan and I mean, and with everyone that I know, one of our is TIPA Snow. So just this additional awareness around, putting yourself into someone with cognitive impairments in their shoes and understanding why certain things might happen, not just like identifying them as their diagnosis, but really truly understanding what they're going through and where some of the stuff comes from, and how you can help and be better equipped to be helpful in those situations and not make it worse. So just really awesome. There's just so many amazing trainings around cognitive impairments. And I think we've come such a long way as to not just slapping a diagnosis on somebody and then putting them in a box, but really just being like, man, how can we make this better? And how can we treat them better? And how can we not just, there's just so much more than that diagnosis, and we need to really find out what makes them happy and they deserve quality of life just as much. And so it's just really cool to see how far some of these memory care assisted livings have gone to really put that idea and that level of care into these type of communities. Don't you think, Morgan?
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
They make a big difference in someone's day-to-day in how their care staff interacts with them. It could be a very unhappy person, but then once they start getting the appropriate treatment, people connecting with them as a human and not like a disease, like you said, how great a difference in their life and their loved ones' lives it can really be.
Yeah, I have to share this because I share it with excuse me, my dog is in the background. I have to share this with you because it's something that's really important to me. And when I was taking that Teep of Snow training, the biggest thing that I learned, I'm a nurse. I am a nurse and I did not know this. The biggest thing that I had learned is that when you are, say somebody's saying, oh, my mom's not eating, like the food's right there, but she won't eat. She just forgets it's there, because we hear this all the time. One of the things that I learned is that as we, in a cognitive impairment, as it increases, that if you were to do what is it called, Morgan? If you put your hands over your eyes and you go like this, you can't really see the plate. And so oftentimes they don't know it's there. And as we progress, sometimes that gets more narrowed and you start having that tunnel vision. And I thought that was, that helped me so much take care of people better. And it's little things like that specialty training just goes like a long, long way, just to remind people, hey, it's right here. And they look down, they're like, oh yeah, it is right there. They just couldn't see it, and just little things, you're like, wow, that's amazing. So anyways, I have to share that with everyone that I talk to because it blew my mind. So, okay, Morgan, what's number 4?
So number 4 is assisted living memory care assisted livings are typically a smaller environment. As our cognitive impairment increases or our cognition worsens, having too big of an environment is overwhelming. It's oftentimes too much stimulation for the brain because the brain can't process the stimulation coming in. And having a smaller environment not only conserves energy for that person, so they're not wiped out just walking down a long hallway, which increases fall risks, and the list goes on. But if it's a smaller environment, you can increase their confidence because they can navigate it independently. So having that smaller space, it's a smaller space for them to learn, a smaller space to grasp. I know where my room is. I know where the kitchen is. I know where the game room is, and it's this small, very manageable space typically for our memory care assisted living residents.
Yeah, I always recommend a smaller community, and most of them are going towards that design, so it's really easy now. But it's just to watch someone thrive just by putting them in the right space is incredible. Okay, so the last one is, and this one's really important. So number 5 is some of the behavioral things are to be expected. So we'll go into a little bit about like what we mean by that, but it can range from, maybe just moderate or to mid to moderate dementia of just being like, mom needs help cueing. Like she can get in there and she can brush her own teeth, but she needs to be cued. Like, oh, here's your toothbrush, here's a toothpaste, put it on there and put it in your mouth. And she can physically do it. He or she can physically do it. However, it could go all the way down the spectrum to moderate to advanced, where we start seeing a little bit more of impulsivity, where we start seeing, everybody kind of has seen in their past, the impulsive walking, where people, they just walk around and they, or in the backyard, they find the path, and we call it pacing, to impulsivity, because our brain is being affected. So depending on what type of brain or what type of cognitive impairment we're dealing with, oftentimes it could be behavioral in a way of aggression, not finding words appropriately or finding words that are not appropriate. So those are 2 very different things, but still a thing. So word finding issues is what I was talking about, as far as not being able to find the words, or just being, a little colorful in your language, because, they just don't really have a filter. And so, it's if you're dealing with that at home, you're a caregiver, and you're just like, oh my gosh, my mom or my dad or my grandma or grandpa are not themselves, like they're cussing at me or they're yelling at me and they're like the sweetest person in the world, that is not anything that you're doing. Typically, it does get better as you get them into a realm where all of their needs are getting met, but it's oftentimes maybe even amplified if it's a family caregiver situation, because it's just, we still have dignity, and a lot of our seniors don't want to become the kid at the end. They've always been the parent, and they like being in the parent role. So we do see that kind of be an issue sometimes. But when you get over into this other setting, this is normal for what they are trained to do. This is not everything that you're dealing with that's not real to you or that's not normal to you is very, very normal in this type of setting. You want to add to that, Morgan?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would add is that for dementia, it takes a village like nothing before. So if you're at home caring for someone and you, a spouse, your mom, and you are completely overwhelmed because you're up at night with them. They maybe don't sleep, maybe their days and their nights are mixed up. It takes more than one person to care for someone with advancing dementia. And the best treatment for dementia isn't a pill. It's not a medicine, because there isn't one, no matter what. I mean, there just really isn't a fix for this. It's the setting.
Mhm.
It's being in the appropriate level of care for their disease process. And more often than not, with dementia, it is very, 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 very hard to keep somebody at home with just one caregiver.
Yeah, very hard. And if you're doing that, feel free to reach out. We can always give you resources to, if that's something that's really important to you and your loved one, to try to keep them in aging in place. There are resources, but at some point, you know, just having someone understand what you're going through, or having stories to tell you about other people that we've helped, just know that we're here. That's what we do. It's probably the hardest transition, and it's not typically, well, it is for the senior, but it's very hard on a family member. I feel like the more independent you are, the harder it is for the senior, because it's just a lot of acceptance. But the, you know, more cognitively impaired, I think it becomes a little harder on the family. And so you're not alone. We help people with this all day long. So don't, like, please, please, please reach out. There's a lot of support out there of other people who have also have been in your shoes, and you don't have to do it by yourself. And there's a lot of guilt and shame that you have to work through to find the next step for you. So, okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today. Those are 5 differences between memory care assisted living and just standard assisted living. If you're liking our channel or you're new to our channel, please subscribe. We put out videos every single week with a variety of different topics. And if you have certain topics that you're interested in, feel free to comment down below. Tell us what you like, what you don't like about this video, or even just chit chat with us down there. It really helps us get exposure to other people looking at videos like this, seeking help and education. So thank you so much. And until next time, bye.
Bye.